Hello everyone, I'm Tyler Rosado, and this is the DIVA Checkpoint. This is your go-to stop for bold insights, big vision, and real action from leaders across Circle K International. Each episode, my guests and I unpack what's happening, what's next, and how we're showing up to lead, with plenty of fun and maybe a little drama along the way. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another season of the DIVA Checkpoint podcast. It is so amazing to be back as your host for another season of the DIVA Checkpoint, and I cannot thank you enough. Of course, this season is made possible by each and every one of you tuning in each week, blowing up season one, sharing it with folks, sharing it with people who are in CKI or in Kiwanis, and even sharing it with people who may have not heard of us yet, but who are on the horizon, going to be new members with us. I know it's going to happen, and I'm so excited to just see this little network that has blossomed as the season came out last year. And I'm so excited because we have tons of new guests, new opportunities, new conversations with district insights, vision, and action for you. And of course, for the premiere of season 2, I had to go big with a very big guest, and I think this guest fills that role. Today, I am talking with Governor Jon Hethcox of Carolinas Kiwanis. Jon Hethcox served as the 101st governor of the Carolinas District during the 2019-2020 Kiwanis year, and was again elected governor for the 2025-2026 Kiwanis year in Asheville in August 2025. A member of the Kiwanis Club of Columbia, South Carolina since 2005, he has served as a 4-term club president, distinguished lieutenant governor, district trustee, and is honored as both a Walter Zello Fellow and George F. Hickson Fellow. His Kiwanis journey spans more than 25 years, beginning in Key Club and continuing through Circle K International, where he held leadership roles at the district and international levels. Beyond Kiwanis, Jon is a third-generation Eagle Scout, assistant scoutmaster with Troop 425G, and an active community leader through organizations such as Communities in Schools of the Midlands and Leadership Columbia. Born in Birmingham and raised in Alabama and South Florida, Jon earned a bachelor's in history from Flagler College and pursued graduate work at the George Washington University. He and his wife Jennifer, also a Kiwanis leader who we've had the pleasure of joining us on this podcast, are proud parents of Caroline and Lillian, both active in Key Club. I had such an amazing time talking with my fellow Carolinas governor, my Kiwanian counterpart, if you will, and we really had a terrific conversation that I think you can all take something from, no matter if you're a current CKI member, current Kiwanian, or someone just interested in knowing more about our organization. So with that, let's get right into the episode. Well, hello, Jon, and thank you for joining me on today's episode of the DIVA Checkpoint podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me today.
Of course, of course. And I want to jump right in because I know one thing about us is we are both in the midst of our governor terms for different parts of the Carolinas organization. So tell me a little bit about what it means to be district governor for Carolinas Kiwanis.
Sure. So, just for your audience's edification, this is my second go as governor. My first term as governor was in 2019, 2020. And we all know what happened in March of 2020. The world shut down due to a global pandemic. So my first term as governor, I'm hoping, is radically different than my second term as governor. And thus far, here we are in December. Haven't heard any rumblings about any global pandemic related issues. There are some outbreaks of various diseases I thought we eradicated that are breaking out in random places like my home state here in South Carolina. Aside from that, I'm hoping that it's radically different. One thing it did teach me during my first term was that a Kiwanis members, no matter their age or kind of where they are in their station of life, can and willingly did pivot to figure out what is a new path forward for us. If we can't meet in person, if we can't do hands-on service projects, if we can't do our typical fundraisers, what do we do? And what I found was that Kiwanians are an enterprising bunch. We had a number of older Kiwanis clubs that were meeting in person routinely. They moved to Zoom. They figured it out. I don't know how, but they figured it out. We had folks like the Hendersonville Kiwanis Club in North Carolina. They have an annual pancake breakfast that is affiliated with the North Carolina Apple Festival. That's every Labor Day. Well, they couldn't do it the year of COVID. So what they came up with was pancakes in a bag, where they sold a bag of pancake batter, syrup, and were able to distribute that. So couldn't do that in person, but had the ability to distribute a boxed pancake type fundraiser, and that worked out really well for them. So in the midst of this term, hoping that that we're still able to understand how to pivot, just not related to a global pandemic, preferably.
Right. Well, I mean, it's definitely a given that there will be challenges, but definitely fingers crossed, no global pandemic. But I love the idea of pivoting with those challenges. My first elected position in anything K family related, I was elected to in 2019 and served through into 2020. And that was the freshman representative of my key club. And of course, at that time, everyone kind of looked around like, well, what can we do? And I think what really got me invested in Key Club and now in CKI is the fact that people were like, well, we don't really know, but we're going to figure it out. And they really rose to the challenge and got that done. So, looking into the rest of your term, what are some of your goals that you have for the Carolinas district?
So our biggest goal by far is, and this is an audacious goal, is to build 10 new Kiwanis clubs in North and South Carolina. And why is it audacious, you might ask? Well, we built three last year. Okay. Three was the most we built in probably a decade. Back in the old days, they used to build clubs because, there was a recognition that we have to grow. Now we're in the mode of we just have to replace what we lose. So if we lose, like last year, we lost seven Kiwanis clubs and gained three. So we're net negative four clubs. We have to build five, eight, 10 Kiwanis clubs to stay ahead of those clubs that are closing. So it is vitally important that we build new clubs. That is my number one and top goal is to get engaged in communities where we may have a footprint. As you well know, in your hometown of Apex, there is a number, I think it's three or four high schools in the vicinity that have key clubs, but do not have a Kiwanis club supporting them. Not too far from Apex is Cary, North Carolina, where we have four key clubs that do not have a supporting key club. We need to be in those communities in a way to deliver to our commitment to our youth, which is Key Club or Circle K clubs, and deliver in a way that they haven't seen that support before. So, goal number one is new club growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talked about this at District Convention for Kiwanis, that I remember the support being in Key Club and Apex and having the support of the Apex Kiwanis Club. And I think that while those clubs definitely have also adapted to navigate any challenges without the support, I can also say that without a doubt, having that support there is 100% preferable to not having it. So
Absolutely.
definitely, I think some of the groundwork infrastructure is already there with the key clubs. I think that's already a foot in the door. And I'm kind of curious. I think that's one opportunity for building clubs. Are there any other opportunities you have kind of seen in the governor role for building new clubs? I know we talk a lot about the clubs that are closing, but where do you look for new opportunities to build clubs?
Yeah, so we're very fortunate. We have some good allies at Kiwanis headquarters in Indianapolis who this is their day job. So they love to investigate potentially new communities where Kiwanis clubs could start. As we've talked about, if there is a key club in a town without a Kiwanis club, I think that is a prime target. Aside from that, I would be looking at locations that are growing, not dying. They don't necessarily need to be, huge suburban or urban neighborhoods. They can be smaller towns. We have some towns in the South Carolina's upstate outside of Greenville, like Easley and Pickens, that are, you could call them bedroom communities, but they're really self-sufficient. There's a lot of activity, economic activity, job growth, new homes being built, new schools being built. That would all, in my opinion, qualify as as an ideal type community to build a Kiwanis club. So in addition to where there are service leadership programs or SLPs without a parent Kiwanis club, I'd also look at places where there is strong economic growth. Now, we have some places here in South Carolina and in North Carolina that are very rural. Maybe they're poor. Maybe they haven't seen a lot of community organizations or civic groups like Kiwanis or Rotary or Lions in their town, but there's still a strong need. Like we can't abandon, we can't just say, hey, we need to go where there are already kids being helped, or we need to go where there's economic growth, because there are many parts of our two states that do not have economic growth, which seems to be that you'd want to have a Kiwanis Club there because of that, because there isn't an opportunity for those kids to have and to grow and kind of watch and live in a town that has strong economic growth. So that could be another opportunity for us is to go into a town or a county like Barnwell County here in South Carolina, kind of traditionally been overlooked. It's roughly between Columbia and Charleston. You drive through on I-26 and you wouldn't even know it was there. But the fact is that there are schools, there are kids, and there are communities that probably could use our help. So we're trying to be very strategic. As I said, 10 is our stretch. Like if you could amplify a stretch goal, that's what it's like, a stretch goal. So if you could go beyond that, so 10 is the goal. But if we're saying, hey, we want to be in a variety of places, towns and cities in our two states, I think it's important to include places like I've mentioned, like Cary and Apex, but also include those towns that may have been kind of off the beaten path or forgotten, that may not have that strong economic development engine behind it, but can certainly use a Kiwanis Club to be in their community to help the kids that are there.
Absolutely. I think those are some great points. And of course, you have a history being a Key Clubber, CKI member, and now a Kiwanian. And I think for not only building new clubs, but even for our existing Kiwanis clubs, what is some advice you could give about capturing some of the younger audiences and recruiting them into clubs? Because I know a lot of times in CKI world, we're talking about getting Key Clubbers into CKI, and then for Kiwanis, it's talking about getting those CKI members into Kiwanis. So, what is some advice you could give to anyone listening about bridging that gap into Kiwanis clubs?
Yeah. So this is an acute problem that I'm well aware of, and I've talked about it. I've actually been able to present on drafting young professionals into Kiwanis clubs at two different Kiwanis international conventions, because it's something that I've studied and looked at very, very carefully. Because I think there's a path to do it, and that path starts with meeting people where they are. And quite simply, we have a lot of Kiwanis clubs that meet in the middle of the day for lunch. And typically those lunches go beyond an hour. So I don't know about you. I work from home, so I walk downstairs and I have my lunch, and I generally bring it right back here to my desk. And that's my lunch. That's my lunch break. I don't go out anymore. I think for a lot of my peers and people who are younger than me, there's the recognition that you cannot leave your desk for an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. And many Kiwanis clubs meet more than once a month. Some of them meet weekly, in fact. So if you ask a young person, every Thursday, I'm going to be gone for an hour and a half from my desk, they will laugh in your face. It is impossible. They can't do it. So the question becomes, well, how do we meet you where you are? We have some great examples at the Sandhills Kiwanis Club, which is in Pinehurst, North Carolina. Robeson Lumberton Kiwanis Club in Lumberton, North Carolina. They both have young professionals. They call them KYP, Kiwanis Young Professionals. And they are a club satellite, which means that they're not their own standalone Kiwanis club, but they kind of act as a committee of the big boy and big girl Kiwanis clubs, where these folks can meet at a time that suits them. And most often that is like in a happy hour type scenario. Their dues are often less because many Kiwanis clubs include lunch in their dues. So not only are you asking me for an hour and a half every week, but now you're also asking me to pay $20 for a lunch. And for many young professionals, those two things together are very, very difficult. So meeting them where they are means flexibility on the meeting day and time, and the affiliated costs that come with being a Kiwanian. If Kiwanis clubs can address those two things, I think we would see a lot more traction. I think, and it's being bared out, as a matter of fact. Like the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. We see the Sandhill Kiwanis Club is growing with both of their core membership, meaning their their big boy and big girl Kiwanis Club is doing very well and they're growing, but so is their KYP. And we're seeing the same thing in Lumberton, where both of those audiences are growing. And I think it's because we're meeting those young people where they are. And by the way, default is that they're going to see additional growth in their regular membership as well, because you've got some of this excitement that young professionals can bring to fundraisers or service projects, and people want to be around that. So that's my general answer is like we just got to meet people where they are, and that often includes like you just can't meet during the day. It just becomes very, very difficult, and you can't charge people hundreds and hundreds of dollars a year in membership costs because it's untenable for them to be able to afford.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, this whole idea is kind of on changing and adapting and pivoting, like we mentioned earlier, to the times, right? And I think this is a conversation that I find myself having a lot is that everything that we've built up to this point in whether it's CKI or it's Kiwanis, it was working at one time, but that was say yesterday and we're in
Right.
today and trying to figure those things out. So there's always conversations going on about the future of CKI, future of Kiwanis, and I think there's a lot of the key talking points that people are hitting often of, trying to recruit younger folks and things like that. What is, in your opinion, something that goes overlooked in these conversations that we're having by most people?
Gosh, I think one of the primary methods that Kiwanis clubs should be using to recruit new members is a roster analysis, which means that you take a look, like let's say we got 50 members and we know their names and what they do for a living. And I think oftentimes we overlook where young professionals may be working. So they could be in hospitality, they could be in retail, and we kind of overlook that in our roster analysis. And it's kind of like, oh, we have people who work at like our hospital administrators or who work at a college or university who are bankers or who are lawyers. We kind of go through that and say, oh, we're good. We're checking the boxes. But where I would think a number of younger people, maybe fresh out of college, who haven't kind of started their big ramp up into the corporate world, like, are we paying attention to where they're working? Are we including their professions or the places that they work in our roster analysis? And I would suspect probably not. Like, are we casting a very wide net? And I would suspect we're not casting a very wide net. That would kind of by default capture a lot of younger people because they're working in some of these places that we often don't think about.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think, looking to the future, it's always going to be kind of the things that we're not considering that are probably our places for bright spots to occur, right? And I think that we'll have to kind of leave no stone unturned is something I found myself saying a lot when it comes to creating these new ideas. For our CKI club specifically, what would you say to a CKI member listening, or even maybe some of our listeners who are just now hearing about CKI? What would you say to do now in our organization or as they're trying to join our organization that can set them up for success, not only in CKI, but to then go on to join a Kiwanis club?
I think a skill set that could easily transfer from being a Circle K member through college and into someone's professional life is all about organization, planning, and follow up. We have a number of really great Circle K clubs that you can kind of see that if they just would do X, then they would be Y. In other words, we know that a lot of Circle K clubs, and this happens with Kiwanis clubs as well, don't plan as carefully as they should. So let's say they have a fundraiser. Well, who's in charge? Who's going to bring, who's going to bring these supplies and who are we impacting and what's the after like the after effect or the impact that we made? Are we assessing all of that? And I think oftentimes we kind of just jump into a project and hope it goes as best as it possibly can. And then we just move on with our life and don't really take a step back and analyze, like, why did this happen the way that it did? What could we have done better? What are the lessons learned from this particular exercise? I think if we stopped and paused and started planning better and more carefully, and then did an analysis afterward, I think we would see more success. And that really could be applied to anything. That could be applied to a membership drive. That could be applied to a fundraiser, a service project. It's all about planning, kind of, and there's no, this is not a mystery, by the way. I'm not breaking new ground, but I'm just saying that, it's the fact that that we just kind of try to just jump in, get something accomplished, and move on with it. When in fact we could be more careful, be more planned, and then have that important follow up. So it seems like a good suggestion if I was kind of turning back the time as a Circle K member, and I was very fortunate enough to be in a position you're in, which is district governor. I can look back and see, gosh, if we would have done X, Y, and Z, if I would have written out a better plan, if we would have followed up and executed on that plan more cleanly, and then we would have done some sort of follow up so we learn about like what this is what not to do in the future. I think we probably would have been more successful. We could have built more Circle K clubs, or we could have raised more money for the Kiwanis Children's Fund or whatever it may have been. So to put a bow on it, it's really all about planning, executing, and then following up. And if you can master that skill set, that translates into your next life, so your Kiwanis life, hopefully, but also your professional life as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And, I want to switch gears a little bit here and ask about, some of the why behind all of this work that you're accomplishing in the governor role and in different leadership positions throughout your time in Kiwanis. Obviously we have the service component of our organization, that's particularly in Kiwanis serving youth. But tell me a little bit about what personally drives you and motivates you to give back in this way by leading in this organization.
Yeah, well, I think this probably is might be an experience that you had as well, and that was I recognize the Kiwanis members that have poured into me, whether I was in Key Club or was in Circle K. I can definitely point to Circle K. Key Club a little different because I couldn't tell you what the names of our advisors were, or the Kiwanis that I interacted with, because I was just a minion in the little machine, of Key Club. Circle K, I mean, I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt who my district administrator was, and his spouse, and our team of Kiwanis advisors that helped myself, that helped my lieutenant governors and other people that were on our team. I can tell you very clearly who they were. And I know that the time that they spent away from either their job or their family or other things that they could be doing. Recognizing now as a grown adult, what they did on my behalf is what drives me to continue my journey in the Kiwanis family. It's what drove me to be Circle K administrator. So there are these people that just, I mean, they were just, I don't know, something drove them. I think it was passed to them. They probably had a Kiwanian or an adult that poured into them, and they're paying it forward. So just like they paid it forward, and I was the recipient, it's my pleasure and my honor to be able to do the same and pour that forward to our young professionals, to our college students, our high school students that I know perhaps wouldn't be getting the attention that they deserve or the guidance that they need from other resources. Because I know that when you're in college, and you know this because you go to a very large state university, it's hard to be able to make an impact in such a, like, you're just a small fish in a big pool. But when you join with the Kiwanis family, whether it's Key Club, Circle K, or Kiwanis, you can make a big impact regardless of what your kind of external circumstances may be. So you could be in at a giant university, but your involvement with Circle K means that you can make an impact that goes beyond the borders of that university. And so that's what I love about my involvement in the Kiwanis family, is that I can do what was done on my behalf for other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think while for the average Kwanian or average Circle K member, that's happening out in the community, and I'm sure the same as, you can say for yourself, but also right at home, you have a lot of that happening as well. I always joke that the Hethcox family is a true exemplar of the term K family. And tell me a little bit about what that means to you, having, an entire family of Kiwanians or Key Clubbers all in one roof.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll go back even before this, like my nuclear family unit. My dad was historian of his high school key club at Talladega High School in Talladega, Alabama. My father-in-law was the president of his Circle K club in Arkansas. So this predate our involvement of the Kiwanis family predates Jennifer and I. We were made aware of Kiwanis and Circle K and Key Club by our parents, by our dads in particular, because our parents are old enough to not have been in the Kiwanis family when there were women allowed. So now that there are, we have two children. So Jennifer and I met as Circle K governors. And we joke that we're a Kiwanis family love connection, which is 100% true and accurate because we met in Indianapolis at 3636 Woodview Terrace, which is Kiwanis's address in Indianapolis, Indiana. We met our first day of governor training when we were in Circle K. I represented the Florida district. Jennifer represented the Georgia district. It was all business. Let me just put it that way, because Circle K came first. So we did not date until after our terms as governor were over. And not to mention, we were 5 hours away, so it was a long distance relationship anyway. So we were poured into. We got the Kiwanis family fever from our parents, from our dads in particular. We're in Circle K. I joined Kiwanis in 2005 when I moved to Columbia. We did take time off from the Kiwanis family after college and before Kiwanis. We were living in Washington, D.C. There was a lot of other stuff going on, particularly just like sowing wild oats and whatnot. So we were just disconnected from the Kiwanis family. But when I got back in the Kiwanis family, I joined the Columbia Kiwanis Club board, became the president of the club. I convinced Jennifer to join and help because I knew, and by the way, after I was our club president here in Columbia, I became the Circle K district administrator, and I knew that I needed Jennifer's expertise as an event planner to help me navigate through that, like all these events that Circle K does. So I was like, if I do this, definitely need your help. So in order to be a Circle K administrator, you have to be a member of Kiwanis. So she joined the Kiwanis Club here in Columbia. Fast forward a couple years after that, we have now a senior and a sophomore in high school. And the girls, there was a key club at River Bluff High School that went away after COVID. And when Caroline got to River Bluff as a freshman, we started, like, she knew that this was a thing we were going to be doing. We were going to build a key club. So she built a key club. We found a family who the mother had been in Key Club in Sumter, South Carolina, and pushed her two daughters. Like, she saw the K, and that was like instant recognition and memories for her, and she knew that would be a good idea for her children to be involved in. And so she pushed them along, and with them and Caroline, and then our involvement, it helped kind of take off the Key Club here at River Bluff High School. So now we have Caroline, who is our club president. She was lieutenant governor last year in Key Club. Lillian, who is definitely the kind of person who will pitch in and help in any way possible, but she doesn't like the spotlight. So she wouldn't necessarily want to be a club president or lieutenant governor, but she'll be there, Johnny on the spot, to help out. And I think hopefully what they're learning is the things that we've learned in Key Club and in Circle K, and that has been, we've got to help. We recognize that there is a need of some kind in our community, and what can we do to fill that need? So hopefully through the generations of Kiwanis involvement, starting with grandfathers, me, and then now the girls, me and Jennifer, and now the girls, hopefully that's created an environment in our household that it's very reflective of, like, we try to put other people and their needs, like, to think, at least at the very least, think about them, like think about what other people are going through, be empathetic. And hopefully that is occurring. We're also a Scout family, so both girls are on the verge of earning their Eagle Scout. I'm an Eagle Scout. My brother-in-law is an Eagle Scout. My brother is an Eagle Scout. My dad's an Eagle Scout. So that mindset also lends itself really beautifully to what Kiwanis is about as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I think can also be tied into our conversation earlier about, recruiting new folks for all parts of the organization. I think once upon a time, that was probably a more common story to have kind of this generational torch passed and getting people involved in our organization. But I think nowadays, especially where Key Club is involved, we kind of have more of this bottom heavy organizational model where we have a ton of these high schoolers, but maybe their parents or other people don't know about Kiwanis. And so this is sometimes thrown around, and I want to get your take on it, how we could potentially leverage our Key Club population to getting, say, mom and dad joined with the local Kiwanis club or something like that.
Yeah. Well, it shouldn't surprise you. Well, I talk about that all the time. It's kind of like, what is the low-hanging fruit here? If you have a student who is very involved, particularly, let's call them like our club board, our key club board, and there are 5 to 6 key club students who, in particular, even beyond a typical key club member, you have 5 or 6 students who are very involved in Key Club, whether that's the president or secretary or service chair, whoever it may be, very, very involved in Key Club. And their parents have to see the work that these kids are doing. They have to know that they're going out to a service project. They have to know that they're bringing supplies in to do a service project at school, or they're doing a fundraiser. Like the parents have to know this is going on, right? So you would think logically that if these parents know what's going on, couple that with knowing what Kiwanis is, which most of them do not. Like if we were able to bridge that gap between what the student is doing in the school and even out of school as a key club officer, if we could somehow bridge that gap and ensure that their parents have a full understanding of, hey, your child is making a significant impact to their local community, whether that's their school or their immediate, town or city. If you understand the impact that they're making and you see that regularly, we want you to make that impact as well, because we know that you've already bought into the Kiwanis family mindset, even if you don't even know what Kiwanis is. Like we need your influence. We need the fact that you're already like ahead of the game. You already know what Kiwanis is about because you see your child participating in service projects or doing fundraisers on behalf of kids in Africa or places we've never been or seen before. And because of that, we think it would be a great idea for you to join Kiwanis. So I think it's incumbent upon, and this is a problem that we have with no Kiwanis sponsorship of key clubs, is that there's nobody from a Kiwanis club going to a key club and helping the students make the connection, and then therefore the student connecting it to their parents. So in an ideal scenario, what we would be looking at is a key club that has a Kiwanis sponsorship, and that Kiwanis Club is sending on a regular basis a Kiwanis advisor or a grown-up Kiwanis member to every Key Club meeting where they talk about Kiwanis and make a purposeful ask on behalf of the Kiwanis Club that says, hey, your mom or dad or your grandma or grandpa, whoever takes care of you, whatever adult you have in your life, I bet that they see the work that you do and they know that the work that you do is good. We're looking for adults who are also interested in that. Do you think your mom or dad or your grandma or grandpa or the adult in your life, do you think that they would be an appropriate person for Key Club or for Kiwanis? And the answer, I think, hopefully, would be, oh, let me think about it. I'll ask them. And you give them a little brochure. You say, here you go, take this with you. And you can tell your parents or your adult in your life all about Kiwanis, the work you do in Key Club, and how Kiwanis, we're just adults who do a lot of the same stuff, that we want to make a difference in our community. We see the value in that. Can you help me with that? Can you help relay this information to the adult in your life? And if all goes well, like if all those boxes get checked, then there's really no reason why we couldn't or shouldn't have an increase in Kiwanis membership. Because as you said, by default, with those Key Club parents or adults that are in the room, they see the work happening. And there's no reason. But I talk about that a good bit with our board, and try to pass that along to our clubs as a like this should be low hanging fruit. This is not that complicated. You've got kids that are already doing the work. We've got adults who are perhaps seeing that work done. Put two and two together, maybe that'll result in something.
Yeah, I mean, and it's something that in hindsight, I hadn't thought about until now being in Circle K. But looking back, when I was in Key Club and the Kiwanis Club had closed down right before my term as president of the Key Club, and then, one of the things that I would ask of like my mom or dad was like, typically we'd have a couple extra Kiwanians as adults at this event, but we don't. Can you come? And that would have been the perfect opportunity to say like, we already have adults that are volunteering and buying into this Key Club opportunity. It makes the perfect sense to kind of connect those dots. And so, of course, that's something I'm thinking about and something that I would love to help facilitate when we have Kiwanis clubs up and running here in Apex and Cary and the surrounding area. And we're almost out of time, but I want to shift gears into a couple things. One of my favorite parts of this podcast is that in the pre-interview, I learned things about my guests that I probably would have never come up in conversation. But we have something in common that we both, when we were growing up, wanted to be paleontologists, and
Yes.
I would love to hear a little bit about that from you.
Absolutely. So I think you could call it an early vision board. Okay. So I had cut out pictures of dinosaurs. I was very proud of the fact that I could spell paleontologist back then. I don't know, I can spell it now. Anyway, so I had this little vision board that had the word paleontologist on top and had dinosaur bone cutouts on this piece of paper. And I stuck that to my desk in my bedroom. And I don't think my parents still have that hutch over my desk anymore, but it was there all through my like through elementary, middle, and high school. It stayed there. When I got into high school and college, I quickly recognized that science and the STEMs were not for me, and that it would be a while I love that and I find it fascinating and interesting as a career, it might not be possible for me to be a paleontologist, but that hasn't stopped me from just loving like Jurassic Park and kind of reading and understanding even fictionalized dinosaur stuff.
Oh yeah. I mean, for many of our CKI members, they know that we, just had our fall call event that was Jurassic Park themed, and I think many of them were under the impression, and I mean, this was also what I told them, that we're doing it because the new movie had just come out, so it was very like relevant. But I knew for me personally, the reason that I brought it up was because I grew up loving dinosaurs, and recently someone asked me like, "Why? When did you start loving dinosaurs?" And I was like, "I cannot remember. I just remember always loving dinosaurs." So, um,
I think I agree. I think I have the same thing. I can't put a finger on like when that happened. Because Jurassic Park, the first one, didn't come out until I was going into high school. So it was before then. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know when.
Yeah, yeah, because I was showing, I think it was my partner, I was showing him our, or just the different newer Jurassic World movies, and he was like, "Well, when did you get into that?" And I was like, "Well, of course I was into the Jurassic Park." And he was like, "Well, when did you get into that?" And I was like, "I think I've just always been into that." So I just thought that was a funny coincidence that we both had in common. And then also, you have had some background in politics and working in Washington, I believe. And I know nowadays politics looks a lot different than it did once upon a time. But I think we also find ourselves navigating sometimes Kiwanis politics, CKI politics. And I think I would love to talk a little bit about how that connection happens. How, Kiwanis is not a politically affiliated organization at all, nor are any of our SLPs. But how do you sometimes see a connection there in terms of advocating for what you believe in or things like that?
Yeah, that's a very good question because I think I agree. Kiwanis is not a political organization. Neither are our SLPs. The good news is that one thing I think we all have in common, and I'll speak from the Kiwanis perspective, is that regardless of political party, I think everyone wants to make the world that we are living in a better place, particularly for kids. Now, sometimes that takes different tacks. We have more conservative people may believe in, right to life versus more liberal or left-leaning folks may think of SNAP benefits and feeding kids when they need food. And I mean, we can kind of debate those two ends of things. But I think the bottom line of our Kiwanis family is that there is a desire to make sure that kids are taken care of in one way or another. And I think that's what really joins us together, is that we recognize that the world is not perfect, and that if we can make a difference in our corner of the world. One phrase that I use a lot, that I started using during this term, is an old Hebrew phrase called tikkun olam, which means repairing the world. And the theory of tikkun olam doesn't mean that we're trying to repair the entire world on our own. It means that we're repairing our corner of the world, or our little town, or our little nook. And if all of us are repairing our little corner of the world, or our little nook, then the world can repair itself. And I think as long as we all understand the tikkun olam, that we're trying to repair the world, we're trying to do our best in our corner of the world, that's what's most important. So regardless of what political leanings a Kiwanian or a member of our service leadership programs may have, I think we come at it from, we're all in recognition that the world is broken and we need to do our best to fix it.
Absolutely. And I think that's something I always try to leverage when it comes to recruiting for our CKI organizations, is that one thing in common across major, across point in their college career, there's time and time again students that are just looking to make a difference because they recognize that something in the world needs to change. And I always just try to communicate that our CKI clubs are an opportunity to join something to make change happen. And it may not look like advocating for a left or a right issue or things like that, but it just looks like getting work done to support kids or to support a cause that we all agree on. And so I think that's really important and really impactful. Before I let you go, I ask all my guests, what is the biggest diva moment they've seen during their time in, whether it's Kiwanis, Circle K, Key Club. So what is something big and bold that you have seen during your time with our organization?
So I had to think about this one, and because I am a listener of the Diva podcast, I kind of knew the question was coming, but that did not stop me from having to think more carefully about it. And I'll rat out myself. This is a diva moment of Jon Hethcox. Okay, when I was a Circle K governor, this was before Kiwanis got a little too chintzy to supply some of these things. But when we went to GATSI, which is governor training in Indianapolis, we each got a gold name badge with our name on it. Okay. We got home and I was like, well, we need to get name badges for our board. Like these folks, these are lieutenant governors. They go to visit Kiwanis clubs. They visit other Circle K clubs. Like they need to have a nice badge to identify themselves. But the diva moment was that nobody else gets a gold badge. You can get a white badge or a blue badge, but you're not getting a gold badge. The gold badge is for the governor. So that's it. That's what I'll wrap myself out for that diva moment.
Well, hey, it is a great identifier, and I will say I have not found my golden name tag, but now I'm going to be out on the look for one. But I thank you so much for sharing your diva moment and for being on the podcast. I wish you the best of luck on the rest of your governor term as well.
Same to you. Same to you.
Thanks for tuning in to the DIVA Checkpoint podcast with me, Tyler Rosado. For more episodes, be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, if you've got something to say, we want you to be a guest on our show. Head over to bit.ly/CKI podcast for more information. Until next time, keep leading loud, CKI.